Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special recap. And in this recap, I'm not going to only analyze one game, I'm not going to analyze two games, but I'm going to analyze 10 games in one recap, which is going to be insane. So, unlike the other recaps, I'm not really going to go into details in these games, but I'm going to blitz through them and highlight the most interesting moments, the blunders that shifted the flow of the game, and maybe brief explanations about my opponents, opening preparation. I still try to cover the most important parts, but I'm not going to really go into the details and just analyze everything. So the story of this recap is that after the Ottawa tournament, which I covered on this channel in full detail, I was actually at 2284 live rating. And I knew the next tournament that's coming up for me is the Canadian Championship in April. So I kind of wanted to play the Canadian Championship without stress of rating. And I was really happy if I could get to 2300 FIDE rating and clinch the FM title before that tournament. So I wanted to play more before the Canadian Canadian Championship, but there were no real good tournaments in Toronto, at least, for me to play. So I decided that I'm still going to play. I don't care if I'm going to face much lower rated players. I'm still going to show up. I'm going to try and farm my way up to 2300. So my logic was that I know it's going to be tough. I need to basically get 10 out of 10. So every game I'm getting 1.6 and I'm 16 points away from FM. So I need to score 10 out of 10 in my next 10 games to become FM. If I only even make one draw, I'm not going to get it. So it's a very stressful situation in that sense. But I was like, I'm still going to play. This is going to make me a better player. I will learn how to play in must-win situations against lower-rated players. And that will help me to play better for the win against high-rateds in the future. So I decided to play this tournament, which they actually paid me a little bit to play in the tournament because I was the top seed by 200 points. In this tournament, it's a chess for win tournament. I actually taught for them in many occasions in their chess association. So they actually paid me a little bit to play this tournament. But it's a little bit of a scary tournament in the sense that I'm facing kids who are rated literally 1800 to 1850 every single game. So that's basically the worst odds that I can get, because if the difference is more than 400 points, you'll get 1.6 regardless. So of course, if I play in 1400, it's much better than playing in 1842, let's say, which I was facing in round one. So I'm getting the worst odds. I'm getting the minimum amount of rating every single game, but I'm still facing kids who are improving very fast and who are 1800 plus and 2000 or 2100 plus Canadian rating. So basically the worst odds, but I'm going to keep on playing. I'm going to have fun. So let's get through these games. It's a 5-round tournament. In the round one, I was facing a very talented junior, Henry Pollitt, who I played in a lot of training blitz games when it comes to chess meetups at Hard House. And I know he's talented and he's been rising very fast. And I knew he's going to play the French defense. So I decided to play bishop d3, which is the line that I employed in many of my games recently. And he actually came very well prepared. He took on e4, played c5, knight f6, knight c6, bishop e3. This is just the main line. I don't want to really go into the details. The best for black here is to take on d4 and put this knight on e5, trying to win this strong bishop on f3. So black's idea is that they will wait for one move, waiting for me to play queen to e2, and now take the bishop. So now if I take with a queen, they play e5, and my knight will not have the b5 square. But I had a very interesting move prepared for him here that he didn't anticipate. Instead of taking with a queen, which is a more normal approach, I took with my g-pawn. Looks a little bit counterintuitive, compromising the pawn structure. But the point is, the rook is going to come to g1, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on his king if he decides to castle here. And if he doesn't, they're still pressuring the center, the queen side is not safe, etc. So here the best move is actually play knight d5, and it's not an easy move to play if you're not familiar. And he played a very natural move, which is bishop to b4, but it's not great. I saw that before the game. a long castle, and now the point is if bishop takes c3, I have knight takes e6, opening up the rook towards the queen. So he tried queen a5, knight b3, queen c7, keeping the pressure on my knight on c3. The problem here is that I could have gone bishop d4 with a lot of pressure on this side of the board with a rook and a bishop, and white is having a great position. But I played rook hg1, missing his idea of taking on c3 and then playing knight d5, which he found really well. The thing is, I can't really take and give a discovery on the queen either on f4 or b6 because the queen is going to block my check on e7. So I had to play bishop to d4, he played f6, and now I played c4. The point is, if he actually decides to take on c3, I saw that I have this very nice idea to go rook to d4, block this queen from this side of the board, and threatening to play rook takes g7. And if he castles, I can actually sack the rook, give this check on e5, and next move, I'm going to give a check on g4 and collect the queen on c3. So he played a nice move f6, I played c4, knight to f4, now I played queen to e3. So there are a lot of inaccuracies that I don't really want to go through in detail here, but here my opponent made the decisive blunder. So of course I have a lot of pressure down these open files, can't really take the pawn because the knight is going to hang, and here he blundered with a very natural move, castles. And the reason this is a blunder is that I go bishop c5, hit the rook on f8, and if he moves the rook away, I'm going to go bishop d6 and win the knight on f4. And that's how I win an exchange by force. What he should have done was to hide the king on f7, but not commit the rook to f8. So king f7 was the best move for him. Not committing the rook to f8, and now I don't have that much. If I go bishop c5, now he's in time to go e5 without losing material and consolidate the knight on f4. And the game will go on in a very complicated manner. He castled when I played bishop c5, e5, bishop takes, king takes, and now I'm just up in exchange. I trade off the queens, and I take another pawn. If rook b8, I have rook d8 check, very important. So he tries knight to e2, rerouting this knight to d4, but eventually I come up with this very nice idea. So at this moment, I saw that I can win the game with f4, undermining the knight on d4. And the point is, after knight takes c2, I have this very nice move f5. So that after knight takes e1, f takes g6, he can't really move his knight away because after gh7, my pawn is simply going to promote. So he has to take back. I take back the knight, and now I'm up a piece. And the win is pretty simple. I bring the king all the way to c4. And the next is going to be activating the rook and slowly starting to push the extra pawn. So in this position, my opponent resigned the game, and I got the first win of the tournament. So pretty simple win, but not the cleanest. My opponent actually found some good moves at some moments of this game. But with this win, I gained 1.6, and I was 1.6 closer to the FIDE Master title. So the next round, I was playing with the black pieces against Aarush Ajith. And of course, overall, when I play these tournaments, playing with the black pieces is always much more tricky because you start with a slight disadvantage and you got to equalize first and try to grind very slowly in these positions. My opponent chose a very solid line, which is the Catalan defense. And I decided to, instead of going with the open Catalan, which leads to more forcing lines, I decided to go with a more closed structure with c6. So that I can keep more pieces on the board and slowly try to outplay my opponent. The idea here is to go knight bd7, b6, bishop a6, and try to just put more pressure on this side of the board. So my opponent played natural moves, bishop on c3, and so far things are very natural, and a very typical break for black here is to go c5, and that's what I did in this position, and put my rook on c8 to exert more pressure down the c file. So here he starts making some slight inaccuracies with rook a1, and that gives me a chance to take on c4, because now he has to either take with a knight, and that will have knight and bishop in a very awkward position with the rook on the c file, or take with a pawn, and then eventually, after all of these trades, get into this position, which is amazing for me, because he now has many weaknesses, and the d3 square is also weak. But again, winning these positions is a different story. It's not that easy. I played knight c5. Of course, he can't take on a7 because of rook a8. And I slowly started putting more pressure. So knight b3 was played, bishop takes g2, king takes g2, and here I missed the best option. So I saw that I have knight takes e5, of course. The reason I didn't play it in a game was this line. I saw knight takes c5, bishop takes c5, knight takes e6. So initially I was like, wait a minute, I can go queen c6 check and exploit these light squares. But then I saw queen c6 check, queen e4, and I was like, well, if I take the queen on e4 and then take on e6, he's going to take my knight, and with so much reduced material and me not being up any material, I don't see how I can win this. But actually, after f takes, bishop takes e5 is forced because the queen is pinned. I can take this and then play rook d2 and win an extra pawn on a2 or f2, which I missed from distance. Like, I saw this whole queen e4 line, but I stopped calculating a little bit too early, and I didn't see I could win a pawn. So I played queen b7 check, keeping more pieces on the board. Now this knight is kind of misplaced, so I reroute this knight to c6, and I'm always better. I'm always pressing against this weaker structure on a2 and c4, and the game kept going. It's a very long game. I kept moving around and just massaging the position, but my opponent was standing really firm, and I was getting a little bit upset around here. I was like, wait, I know I'm better. I know I have a better structure. I have a better minor piece, but how can I win? How can I break through? And he starts just moving around with the king. So I poke here and there, but he's just waiting, standing firm. Of course, there are better ways for me to play, but I'm just poking around, just doubling the things. He doesn't even do anything, but I'm just trying to force him to make a compromise, force him to make a mistake. But he's just standing firm. He's so patient. And that was really annoying for me. I knew I was better, but I just couldn't provoke him to make a weakness. So at some point, he actually just kept waiting, and here I decided to just move my bishops to avoid 3-4 repetition and going with a queen. And here he finds the nice move queen to b7, and all of a sudden he's attacking my rook and the pawn. I was like, is the dream over? Am I just folding in the second game? I played queen c6, and now I changed the position to this endgame, where I know I'm still better because of this weakness, but it's so hard to play for the win. But I kept playing, attacking the pawn on e5. Now I play a4 and a3. Getting this pawn to a3 is always nice, because if I can ever win this pawn on a2, then the a3 pawn is going to be a monster. So he plays here, rook c7, king e2, g5, and we keep playing. And here he makes a decision which makes me really happy. If he goes just king c3, it's going to be very difficult to win this. White is rock solid with no weaknesses. But he decides to go rook g4 and f4. The problem now is that after bishop e7, the rook is kind of trapped. I'm threatening to go king h5 and just trap the rook. So he has to take, and now he gets these two weaknesses. So all of a sudden he has 4 isolated pawns, which makes the game much more difficult for him. Plays knight d4, and I just keep poking around. Bishop c1, bishop d2 is coming now. He goes knight b5, king g6. The game is drawn all the time, by the way. Like, he's playing a great game. This is move 72. This guy is playing an amazing game. So now I put my rook behind this pawn, putting more pressure, maybe some king g5 ideas. So as you can see, even though the engine says it's zeros, I think it's getting a little bit difficult for white. Bishop is coming to b2, putting pressure on e5. Pressure is on g4 as well. And here's where my opponent crumbles. He plays knight to f3, which is a huge blunder in this position, missing that I go rook c1 check. And now if king b3, he loses this knight on f3. So now he has to go king d2. And now after rook a1, here's the point I mentioned. With a pawn on a3, it's always very dangerous. If he loses the a2 pawn, he's going to lose the game. And that's what happens. He goes king c2, rook e1. But now I simply trade the rooks. And in this position, I'm up a pawn, and I just take another one on e5, and then king g5 is played. So the point is, I'm winning the second pawn, and if he tries to win my bishop like this, then after king b4, king d4, my e pawn is just coming down the board. And if he goes and takes this, I simply take on c4. So in this position, my opponent resigned the game, and I got the second win of the tournament. Pretty hard-fought win, though. I was really scared. I was like, what's going to be next? I'm not winning the games easily and smoothly. So in round 3, I was playing against another talented junior, Aarush Qian. This kid actually had like a 1950 peak FIDE rating. He was on a little bit of a decline. He's at 1833, but he's definitely underrated. His CFC rating is also like close to 2100. So this game, I saw he plays e4, e5. And he plays solid lines within e4, e5 as well. Like he plays Berlin. So I was like, I'm going to play d4 this game. Let's play the London system. So London system, I personally think it's a very good must-win opening because you just get a game. It's not like you're fighting for some huge advantage, but you get a game. You get a game with most of the pieces on the board. So I played the London system. I played this line bishop d6, and I refrained from trading the bishops to keep more pieces on the board. Castle was played, knight to d2, c5, c3, knight c6, bishop d3, all normal stuff. Queen c7, and now knight comes to f3, defending the knight on e5. And here he finds a very nice move, knight e4. So his idea is that he blocks my bishop, and he's now threatening to go with f6 and getting rid of my knight on e5. But this indeed is a huge positional mistake. And I was very happy to see that. Because after f6, which is a huge positional mistake, I take the knight on c6, I take the knight on e4, I take the bishop on d6, so I literally take everything. But now after queen takes knight d2, looks like I traded a lot of pieces, but the problem is he can't really defend this pawn on e4. If he defends it with a queen, I take on c5, and if he takes back, I win a pawn. If he defends it with a pawn, as he did in the game, now I'm going to get a good knight versus bad bishop in this game with a knight coming to e5. So I played knight c4, queen d5, and now knight comes to e5. So I knew I had a great position here. I just needed to convert. But I made some inaccuracies again. So he played b6, queen goes to h5, and I put my queen on g5, thinking that I can maybe go h4, h5, h6, and create more weaknesses on this side of the board. He took and played queen d6, and here I started making some mistakes in this position. So I played rook ac1, which I instantly regretted actually, because I realized rook fc1 would have been much better. Like the rook on the f file is not really doing much, but the rook on the a file actually holds the queen side together. Like when I'm attacking on the king side, my opponent is going to create some threats on the queen side, as you will see in the game. So I played rook ac1, slight inaccuracy. The problem is that after all of that, he goes bishop e5 and hits my rook. Now after rook fd1, rook c7, I was like, oh my god, now the rook is coming to c8, and he's going to win the battle of the only open file in the position. So I correctly decided to play king to h2, anticipating that this is going to happen, so that after rook c8, when I take, I can play rook to d2 and guard my second rank. So I don't let this rook come in and just win all my pawns. So he played rook to c8, defending his back rank, because if he plays queen to b4, I'm going to win the rook with queen d8. But now queen b4 is a major threat, so I go a3, and he goes a5, which I didn't like. Like, a3 was not just a waiting move. I just stopped queen b4, and now I'm starting to attack myself. So he played a5. Now I played a very interesting move, f3, putting even more pressure on his center. He decided to go bishop d3, which was interesting, exploiting this pin and trying to take back with a bishop on d3. But now I go queen to f4. So the threat is to take the bishop and just win a piece. He finds a nice move, rook to c2, because now if I take, he's going to trade the queens and then take my rook on d2, and I'm going to be down in exchange. So I decide to take and then play king to g3. So looks as though a lot of pieces are traded, but the problem is his dark squares are going to be so weak. I'm going to go h5, h6, and then after g6, his dark squares are going to be weak, and this bishop can do absolutely nothing about it. So here, it's already a very tough position. I think he should have gone h6, and then maybe traded the queens to go to this endgame, which is still incredibly unpleasant, with the king coming to e5, knight to f4, putting pressure on e6. But he decided to keep the queens on, but now after h5, queen to b5 was a huge blunder because he completely underestimated my threats. I go h6, queen goes to e8, and now I play queen to g5, threatening checkmate on g7. Now he plays queen to f8, defending against the threat. So initially I thought that knight d7 is an easy win, he just resigns. But then I saw he has this nice move, queen d6 check, and then I have to come back, otherwise he's going to take my knight. So then I found knight c4, stopping queen d6 from happening. And the point is, this queen is stuck. he can't move his queen away, and I'm simply attacking his pawns. So once he went g6, I just simply go f4. This queen can never move away. If the queen moves away, then I'm going to go queen f6 and create mating ideas. So he tried moving around with his bishop, but now I go a4, fixing this pawn on a5. Bishop c6 was played, and now I simply go b3. And now knight c4 is going to come. By the way, don't pay attention to these signs here, because like b3 is not the most accurate, but I think practically speaking, it's the best move. Just defend the pawn, no counterplay. Knight c4, knight takes a5 is coming. White is definitely still in control. So here my opponent saw that he can't just wait. I'm just going to win this pawn, come back, and start pushing and win the game. So he decided to throw the kitchen sink with queen b4 and try to maybe go with some perpetual, but it's not going to happen. Queen f6, threatening checkmate, and queen takes e6. Now after queen e1 check, I simply go king h2, and there's no more check on h4, and mate is going to happen on g7 next. So in this position, my opponent resigned the game, and I got another nice win. So far, 3 out of 3, and I was going into round 4, facing the other leader of the tournament, who was having a sensational tournament. I was playing against a woman candidate master, Ashley Qian. She's a super talented young junior. She actually almost won the Canadian Women's Championship happening after this tournament. Like, she was just beating everyone there. This tournament too, everyone was getting cooked against her. Like, she beats 2,100 CFC players getting into this game. So with the black pieces, I was actually a little bit scared. I was like, oh my god, against such a talented girl. She's like only 12, I think. She's extremely talented. She's gonna be like better than me in 2 or 3 years probably. So in this game, my opponent actually surprised me with playing the Panov attack. So before the game, I saw she plays the classical variation and the advanced variation. I was prepared there with some new ideas, but she surprised me with a Panov attack. And we got this position. So I actually had this position in another game 2 years ago, which is in the database against Jeffrey Zhou. And in that game, I took on c4 and won a very nice game. But I was like, she probably have seen that game and she has something prepared. So I decided to go with a new approach, which is bishop to e6. So the idea of bishop e6 is that I consolidate my pawn on d5, and I want to develop this bishop via g7. So now, if she takes on d5, I'm going to take back with a knight, and if she goes c5, now there's no pressure on my center, and I can go g6, bishop g7. And that's basically what happened. She played c5, she took on f6, and now I played bishop g7, bishop e5, castles, castles. And here, black is already better. I played a great game so far, and here I made a huge mistake. So the best is just to go bishop g4 and put a lot of pressure on this d4 pawn, and then play f5 to open up this bishop and exert even more pressure. For some reason in the game, I was not happy to weaken this d5 pawn. I decided to go f5 anyways. When after rook e1, I realized that this bishop is so bad on e6. And without the bishop on g4, the pressure on the d4 pawn is actually a little bit meaningless. So I played f4 and g5, trying to attack on this side of the board. So here, the game is starting to get very interesting. And Ashley decides to play a very interesting move, knight e5, which is slightly inaccurate. She had to maybe take and just go b4 and play with 2 knights against 2 bishops. But with these bishops kind of blocked, white has more than enough compensation. White is threatening to go here and just get a protected passer. So probably she didn't want to play like that and decided to go knight e5. Now I took and played d4. Now knight goes to a4. Very nice move. So the point is, if the knight goes to e4, I'm going to take on e5. And if the knight goes to d1, let's say I go queen d5 and attack e5 and c5 at the same time. So her idea is to go to a4 and now play b3. And the point is, I can't really take on e5 because of bishop c4, deflecting my queen from the d5 square. So rook fd8 was played. White played bishop to d3. And now I dropped my queen back to d7, trying to go bishop f5 and maybe meet this bishop on d3, because there was also like bishop c4 ideas all the time. Ashley plays rook a d1, I go rook a c8, she goes bishop e4, I go h6, and now queen d3, queen e7. We're just moving around a little bit. It's a very complicated position. After queen f3, I just go rook c7, guard my pawn on b7, and so far the position is equal. Black is slightly better because of the bishop pair. But here Ashley goes with a wrong idea. She plays bishop to b1. So her idea is to go queen d3 and try to exploit my light squared weaknesses here, which looks very reasonable. But the problem is, after king f8, queen e4, rook d5, and queen h7, she's not achieving anything. Yes, she gets the queen to h7, and yes, my king is on f8, but there's no threats. So now what I do is that I just say that your queen is out of the game, your bishop is out of the game, and now I'm going to use this opportunity to attack you. I go g4, bishop d3, and now queen g5. And all of a sudden, this queen on h7 doesn't make any sense. I'm just going g3 and blasting open the position, and she just doesn't have anything. If she goes bishop c4, I simply go bishop f5, and the queen is trapped. If she goes queen e4, she's going to lose the e5 pawn. So she, after a long thing, she played this move with like less than a minute left, played king f1, but now I just keep going. Blast open the position, takes h3, and now I find a very nice tactic. Bishop takes h3, and if she takes, there's queen f4 check with checkmate on f2 coming. So she decides to bring the queen back, but now I take on e5, play bishop g4. Now there's more material dropping. Rook e5 was played. Now the rook on d1 is unsavable. So that's what we got. She tried this, but now I find this very nice finish. Queen f4 check, and now queen h4, sacking the bishop on d1. The thing is, if she doesn't take the bishop, queen h2, king f1, queen h1 is mate. The bishop is actually guarding the e2 square. Let's say she takes this. That's how she's going to get mated. And once she took the bishop, I have check, 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 and queen f2 is checkmate. And I win my fourth game, getting to 4 out of 4. So I'm actually winning these games. The kids are giving me tough fights, but eventually I'm coming out victorious and just farming 1.6, 1.6, 1.6 every single game. So the next game, I was playing against Nathan, Zian, Wang. So I'm already the only leader of the tournament. And this game is actually a 2.6 kind of game. Like, he's 1900, he's less than 400 points lower. So he was at 3.5 points, and I was the only leader of the tournament with 4 points. But I was not in the mood to make a draw. If I make a draw, I win the tournament. But I just wanted to get 5 out of 5. Because if I draw this game, I'm literally going to lose rating for the whole tournament. So I need to win. I start with e4. My opponent plays c5, knight c3, knight c6, bishop b5. You've seen me play this line. And if you saw one of my recaps previously against James Windrum, he played this exact same line in the Ottawa March Open Tournament. This is a recap called the Dance of Knights, knight g5 and knight d5. In that game, James Windrum played e6, and after knight e4, he's just lost with a weakness on d6. And we talked that the best moves are f6 and f5, and it's incredibly difficult to find. And Nathan here spent like 20-25 minutes, and he found a6, which is better than e6 that James played. And the idea is that after queen f3, threatening mate on f7, he goes f6, attacking my knight. I take on d5, he takes my knight, and now I drop my knight back to c3, e6, now I drop my queen back to f3. So even though the engine says it's okay for black, I think it's incredibly difficult. So first of all, if he goes bishop e7, he can't really castle because my queen is here. If he goes rook f8, then I will win a pawn on h7. And my idea is to simply go d3, queen g3, and put more pressure on the weaknesses. So he has the bishop pair, but his bishops are not that good. So here he decided to play d5, to just lash open, just open up these bishops. But that just creates so many weaknesses in the position. Like right now, he has 1, 2, 3, like 3 weaknesses here. And I slowly start exploiting the weaknesses. I go d3, knight to e4. Now I'm threatening to win this pawn on g5. He defends the pawn with bishop e7. Now I go queen g3, putting even more pressure on this pawn. Nathan plays g4, and now I play h3. And now the problem is the pawn on g4 is hanging. He can't go e5 because the queen takes. If he takes on h3, I actually have queen takes g7 hitting the rook on h8 and then recapturing this pawn. So he's now losing a pawn by force. He goes queen d5. After h takes, he goes h4, trying to keep the file closed. But I'm just up a clean pawn. I go queen here, and now I go b3. And after bishop f6, this is an interesting and instructive moment. I thought I can maybe take and then play bishop to b2, but that gives so much counterplay with this diagonal. I didn't want to go into that. So I played this move rook to b1, which is a little bit weird, but I thought this knight on e4 is very good. Like, even though he has the bishop here, this knight on e4 is just very solid, just blocks all sorts of counterplay. I'm going to keep this knight. So I kept the knight for a while, and now that I was threatening to take on c5, he defends with b6, and now I take on f6 and play bishop to b2. And the point is, after e5, I don't even castle. I go king f2 and just put more pressure on this pawn on h4. So initially, my idea was that after rook h3, if he tries to double these rooks on the h-file to keep defending the h4 pawn, I'm eventually going to go g5. And after this trade, the h4 pawn is going to fall. He decided to go with an interesting idea to try and put more pressure on me here and try to maybe generate some counterplay. I like that. But the point is, after takes, I have this nice move rook to d1. Now I'm trying to take with a rook on d3. And the best way he can defend against that is just to go e4 and trade everything. But after all of that, I'm up 2 clean pawns in the endgame. And the rest, it's still some technical difficulties because of opposite colored bishops, but we moved around a little bit. I activated my pieces, made sure my pawns are defended. And he was actually very low on time. I had all the time in the world. And here with king e3, I put a very nice trap. So I saw that if I take this bishop and play f7, he's going to go rook f5 check and win my pawn. So I played king e3, seemingly innocent move. But now after rook g4, which is natural move, I simply sack the rook. And after f7, rook e5 check, king d2, I'm going to promote this pawn next move. And I'm going to be effectively up a piece in this endgame. So in this position, my opponent resigned the game and I actually managed to get 5 out of 5 out of this tournament. And with this tournament, I actually gained around 9 rating points. So after these 5 wins, I'm 7 points away from the FIDE Master title. And that's really cool, but I need to keep playing and there's no tournaments. So I started playing some weekly tournaments. The tournaments were their games on Monday, like 1 game each Monday, 1 game each Thursday, just to try and inch my way closer to 2300. So I played 2 club games. I played this game in the Annex Chess Club against National Master David Southam, who's a very good player actually. He's been over 22, who's been like 2300 FIDE at his peak. But he's of course like a little bit less, a little bit out of practice these days. He has like other life commitments, so he's down to like 1888 FIDE. So this game is just for like 1.8 FIDE. I saw he plays the Dutch, and that's the line I like to face if I know my opponents are going to play it. He plays the classical Dutch. So I prepped this line, which I thought it's good, controlling this e5 square. And a very interesting moment arose here. So I saw that the best that black has is to just take and go d6. And David plays this move c5. Yeah, after long calculation, I actually saw that I have a very good chance to win a pawn. So I take on e4 with a bishop, giving up the bishop here. He has to take with the f pawn. I take on c5. And now, if he takes with a bishop, now I'm going to go knight c3 and attack this pawn on e4. Same as he takes c5. I will show you how I win the pawn. But the best move that he also mentioned after the game is simply go knight a6, give up the pawn like that, and maybe try to get this knight to c5 or even to d3. But he took with a b pawn, and the point is after knight c3 d5 takes 6. By the way, I saw this line in advance when taking on e4 in this position. I saw that in this position I have this very nice move knight d takes e4. The point is if he takes, I go queen b3 check and win the bishop on b7. So David plays king h8, I go knight g3, and here he plays a very surprising move to me. So I think still, even though I'm up a pawn, he has the bishop here, and he has these 2 central pawns which can cause trouble after d4. In fact, after d4, white is just like 0.7 better. But David plays rook takes f4. After the game, I asked him about this, and he was like, I was like, if I want to go down, I might as well go down swinging. Which was a very interesting quote. I liked it. It's one of those memorable quotes that I will remember forever. But this simply just gives me 3 points of material. And if you can't checkmate, which you simply cannot, like I just defend everything, then it's going to be a simple win. I go queen h5, queen goes back to e2, and now he tried rook f8, hitting my pawn on f4, but now I simply go knight to g5, and after bishop d6, I go queen to e6, creating this pin on the queen. So David plays queen to c6. Now I go knight 3 to e4. And in this position, he decides to, like, there's a lot of pressure on the bishop. He had this rook f6 move, by the way, that he missed. Because if I take, there's checkmate. Even there, like, I'm still up so much material, but he decides to win a pawn and trade the queens. But now the win is pretty simple. I win the bishop pair. Now I simply up an exchange. I reroute my knight to e6. And the very nice move that ends the game is this move b4. Just breaking this pawn structure, making sure there's nothing going on. So he takes the knight and goes rook d5 to try and maybe play with this passer on the d file, but the rooks are just too strong. I just bring my pawn to f3, rook on d2, and slowly start putting pressure on this pawn on d3. And he can't really defend that. He tried this, but after g3, he can't really keep defending the pawn. If he takes, I'm going to go king g2 and win the pawn. Next move, he tried knight h5, but after rook takes d3, I'm up an exchange on a pawn. So in this position, David decided to resign, and I was again 1.6, 1.8 closer to my goal, which is the FIDE Master title. So the next game I played in a Scarborough Chess Club against Yathushan Jeyakumar. This is actually my lowest rated opponent, so I'm going to quickly show this game. It was actually not that easy of a game. He gave me a good game. He played the classical variation of the Caro. And I had a game against Thomas Nechtel that I discussed this line in much more detail. But he didn't play bishop d2. He played c3. And the point is, after c3, knight gf6, this bishop can get kicked by the knight. Castle was played, not the best in this line. Usually white wants to long castle. Now h4 is a little bit of weakness. I played bishop e7, rook fe1, knight e5, hitting the bishop. Queen goes back to c7. But it's still like white is solid. And he was playing good moves. Like a3 is a good move. Preparing c4 without giving me the b4 square. I played rook d8, played c4. Now queen to e2. After castles, he played b4. Like, it's a pretty long game. And at this moment, he played this move which made me pretty happy. He played knight e5. The point is that after takes knight d7, I'm now starting to create some threats. I'm starting to create threats on this pawn on e5. Oh my god. Okay, that's not a blunder. Oh my god, I just strained my. Oh my god, I just strained my. Oh my god, sorry guys, that's such a. Okay, I need to finish this. Such an uncomfortable situation for me to sit. But anyways, this is not a blunder. This is a mistake. This is actually the best move. So the idea of knight d7 is to take on e5 next and just win a pawn on d2 with a bishop here. So he defends. I go knight f8. He plays h5. Good move, stopping my knight from coming to g6. Now I play knight h7, and so far actually white is better. My opponent is playing a great game of chess and kind of outplaying me. So I was getting a little bit worried, but he was very low on time. He was down to like 1 minute, and I had like 40 minutes. So as the game went on, he started making some mistakes. He played rook e3. Now after f6, he needed to anticipate my move e5. So I'm threatening to go e5, and after the queen trade, I'm attacking the bishop on f4 and then trying to win this pawn on d6. So in this position, my opponent blundered with queen g6, just completely missing my idea of e5 and then taking the pawn on d6, and now I'm completely winning. What he should have done was to maybe go some rook d1, anticipate this, and try to defend this pawn on d6 with much more care. Once that happened, now I just slowly consolidate. The rest is pretty simple. I just consolidate my position. I'm up a pawn. And eventually, I keep pushing and threatening more pawns here. The game is pretty long, actually. He tried a little bit more. But now I'm up 2 pawns. I go with the 3rd pawn. And all the pawns fall like ripe fruits. And now I'm up 4 pawns. Very interesting stuff. And eventually, I just start pushing my a pawn. Check, queen g4. And he just doesn't have any counterplay. Yeah, queen f5, no counterplay. Just defend my pawns and just keep pushing. d2 was played, rook b1. Now I play e3, opening up my queen towards this rook on b1. And after rook to d1, I played e2. 2 very nice pawns on the second rank. He takes on d2. I simply win the rook. And now the e-pawn is also promoting. He actually played until checkmate, but the rest is pretty trivial. Just go queen d1, threatening checkmate on h1. He tried to prolong the game, but he's always going to get mated. And with that, I got another nice win. And so after that, I was basically 3.8 away from the FIDE Master title or something like that. So I needed to win 3 more games like this to become a FIDE Master. So let me actually insert this result here as well. Against Jeyakumar, I managed to win with the black pieces and move on to like 2296-ish live FIDE rating. So then I decided to play one more weekend tournament to clinch my FIDE Master title. So I played this tournament called AFM First Peel Region. And in round 1, I was playing against Sethi, who's like 1731 FIDE. But let me tell you guys, this game, oh my god. It's might haunt me forever. Anyways, so d4, d5. So I was already feeling the nerves. I was very close. I was feeling, oh my god, I'm so close, and I'm going to get it this tournament. So I played a London system, and if you remember, I had a recap against Zian Hong. It's called the aggressive London system. That I played this exact line, and I won a very nice game. I played that game with some knight e5, bishop e2, g4, h4 ideas. But my opponent played this idea of knight h5 and then f6, which is simply not good here, because after bishop h4, bishop e7, he missed my very nice idea, which I found during the game, that is knight back to g1, attacking the knight on h5. The problem is that after g6, he's simply going to lose a piece after g4. So he found the best idea, g5, but I still win a pawn, and I get my queen back. So now I'm up a clean pawn, and already I'm cruising in this game. So up a pawn, no counterplay. I just slowly start developing, create more weaknesses, let's say on h5. So it's a pretty smooth game. Right? Long castle, put my knight on f4, more pressure on these weaknesses. And of course, there are inaccuracies that I don't want to cover. But after all of these trades, I go rook h3, trying to double the rooks on the h file. He goes here, and we just play some moves. And eventually, I offer to trade off the queens. If he trades off, I'm just off a pawn in the endgame. So he keeps the queens on and tries to get out of my pressure. But now I give this nice check on f5 and reroute my knight to e5. And around here, after rook g5, I realize I'm completely winning. So here is where things get very interesting. So after rook g5, I realize after queen h3, I'm simply going to win the game. Because after queen h3, I'm threatening to go knight to f7 and just create a family fort with the queen and these rooks. So I saw that queen h3, there's no way he can stop knight f7. But in the last moment, I was like, wait, if I go queen h3, he's probably going to sack the exchange and just try to throw the kitchen sink to my king. So why not put my queen closer to my king, let's say to d3? Because he can't really take on g2, because after knight f7, he can't even defend his rook. He's going to lose a full rook, not an exchange. So I was like, of course, queen d3 is a better move. Because now if he throws the kitchen sink, I'm just going to go queen d4. And my king is pretty safe. But then he played rook hg8. And I was like, oh my god, I just messed this up. Because now if I go knight f7, he's going to go queen g6, attacking my unprotected queen on d3, which I totally disregarded. So here I am already tilting because g2 pawn is hanging. And now, oh my god, if he wins the g2 pawn, I'm not having any advantage. It's equal again. So I was on mad tilt at this moment. And sometimes when you make one blunder and you're in mad tilt, a second blunder will come, and that's exactly what happened here. I blundered a full piece with rook takes h4. And after rook takes c5, I realized the dream is almost over. The problem is I missed that after d5, he simply has this intermediate check with queen c5 check. Now my rook is hanging. So after queen h7, rook g5, I tried to create some threats in the 7th rank, and now he plays rook 5 g7, which is a blunder by the engine. But the reason is, if I take, and give this check, which I saw in the game. I saw that I have this thing. With 2 rooks on the 7th, it's probably going to end in a draw, but he always has this perpetual ideas. And I can't afford a draw. If I draw this game as well, the dream is dead. So I decided to keep the game going, even though I'm down a piece. And we get this endgame, where he has a bishop for 2 pawns, and he's completely winning. So I gave this check and played f4. He played a6, giving some love to the king, and now I played g4. And here, my position is completely lost. If he goes like queen a5, bishop f2, queen e1 check, and just exploits my weak king, he's going to win the game very easily. But here, he starts to play a little bit scared. And that's where I start to feel, oh my god, maybe the dream is not dead yet. So he goes bishop f6 back. It gives me some sort of activity. Now g5 is coming. Queen e7 was played, and now I play queen to d3. So of course, I can go like g5. But then he's always going to have perpetual. So I'm trying to make the draw as hard as possible for him. He goes queen e4, and I go king to d2. I have to mention, he's down to like less than a minute at this point. And this tournament had like a 10-second delay as the increment. So he needs to move fast. And it's impossible to calculate this endgame with these pawns coming down the board in 10 seconds. So he repeats moves. I repeated once. And I was like, oh my god, does this guy want a draw? So if I go queen d3, I can simply claim a draw. But I was like, wait, with a draw, the dream is dead. So let me keep pushing for the win. And the fact that my opponent was playing for a draw, even though he was up a piece, it gave me this confidence that I can do whatever I want, and he's still going to be happy with a draw. So I kept moving around. And now I bring my king to g4. And now f5 comes. And all of a sudden, things start to look tasty. f6 is coming. He played bishop h8, but the problem is if I go f6, he's simply going to take, and this is going to be a dead drawn queen endgame. So I played a very sneaky move b3, knowing that he's going to try and get this king closer. But now with a king on e8, I go f6, and after bishop f6, I have queen g6 check. And now I win the pawn. So now I'm in a completely winning position. But do you think I won this smoothly? Not at all. I play queen f4, check, king g5, check, and he starts giving me all these checks. And I'm also getting low on time, so I couldn't figure out how to get rid of all these checks. In fact, the way is not so simple. I should go here, king h5, queen h6, and then put this king on h4, and then there are like tons of checks here that I need to like consider. My king is just going to run like this. If he tries this one, I'm going to go king h5 first, and then move the king to g6 next move. So it wasn't that easy to evade the checks. So eventually I decided to do this and put my queen on f2, which was a huge mistake, because now he can take on d4 actually. And after f7, he has this check on g7 with king e7 coming. But I was like, he's not going to see that in 10 seconds. I was gambling hard here. I was like, I'm going to gamble whatever. Just try to win this game. So he keeps giving checks. He wants to draw. I move my king all the way to this side of the board. And now we get this position, which all of a sudden, it's not so simple for black. The only drawing move is to go queen to f7 and block my f pawn on f6. Any check loses the game. For instance, he gave this check on h6. I go king e5, check, queen f4, and now my king actually runs into d6 and he doesn't have any more checks. He tried queen to e8, trying to give a check on e7, but now I centralize my queen to e5, and he doesn't have any more checks. He tried king c8, now I simply go a4, trying to cripple these pawns on this side of the board, and then trade the queens at the right moment. Aaron played b5 last try, but now I go queen e7, and the point is that after ba4, I simply trade the queens, and my king is going to be faster here. He's going to have to win the distant pass pawn, but now I have this extra d pawn, and I go for the a6 pawn. And in this position, Aaron resigned the game after 98 moves of grinding. This was definitely the most nerve-wracking game yet. But I was 1.6 closer yet again. So I just need 2 more wins. And in round number 2, I was facing Larry Zhou Chen, 1754 FIDE. He played a very solid line. He tried to play the Petrosian variation of the Queen's Indian. And we got this position. And a very interesting moment in the game. So he played bishop e2, which is usually not a good move. Like, black is usually waiting for this bishop to move and then take on c4. And that's kind of a waste of the tempo. Like, the best for white is to simply take and then take on e7, just then develop the bishop. Because here he wastes one tempo. Castle, castle, c5, queen e2, takes, a6, stopping things from coming to b5 and trying to go b5 myself. Rook fd1 was played, and now here I realized that there's a huge threat of sacking on e6. So, like, this can possibly be dangerous with king h8, bishop takes f6 coming next. So I needed to anticipate that with king h8 and then play b5. Now I put my queen on b6, and now all of a sudden the queen and bishop are doing well. He played bishop g3, knight goes to c5. Bishop g3, by the way, was a good move, stopping my knight from coming to e5 and then to c4. So this was played, rook a c8, f3, rook fd8. Now bishop f2 was played, queen goes back to c7, rook a c1, bishop d6. I provoked more weaknesses. Now this diagonal is a little bit weak. I was pretty happy with that. After queen b8, he goes knight to a2, which is not a good move. The problem with knight a2 is that it weakens the e4 square. And here I had a chance which I missed. I could have gone e5, which I didn't because I thought knight f5 is pretty strong, but I simply go e4. And the problem is that after a move like f4, let's say, with this pawn on e4, my piece is getting a lot of activity. My bishop suddenly comes here into c4, and then the knight goes to d3, and I'm doing great. I played more positionally, dropping the knight back to d7. e4 was played, bishop c5, b4, bishop goes back here. And now he plays a4, and here I was starting to get a little bit nervous. I was like, what if he's just liquidating everything? So after takes, knight e5, b5, actually, my best line was to just simply take, and after rook takes, just queen takes, and after, let's say, bishop takes, I thought this position is actually hard to play for the win because of few pawns left in a symmetrical structure. But after a move like g5, black is actually definitely pressing in this position. Like, g4 is coming, weakening this pawn structure. If he goes g4, then it weakens more squares. But I didn't see that. I decided to play a5, which is not a great move. But then he starts making some very slow moves with h3. He wants f4. Like, he had to play a little bit faster. But now after bishop b6, knight c3, I go queen to a7. And all of a sudden, there's a lot of threats alongside all of these lines. And here, I saw this line that he had in the game, knight c6. But the problem with knight c6 is that he's actually going to lose an exchange. So I saw I take with a bishop. I trade everything on f2 and win the exchange with knight b3. But from distance, I also saw that this endgame after knight b5 is not so trivial for me to win. With this pawn on c6, a strong passed pawn supported by the rook, I wasn't sure about this endgame, and indeed, this is actually a draw. But I think I still would have had chances to press him in this endgame. Anyways, he played a more natural human move f4, but now I sack the rook on d4. The thing is, if he takes, I take here, and then win the c3 knight as well. He takes, now I sack the other rook on c3, and the point is after takes, queen takes d1. I had this very nice idea of knight takes c4, which would have ended the game on the spot, but I played a more human move, bishop takes f2. We are both already down on time, and now knight to g8. So now I have two pieces for the rook, should be great with a weak king, but the problem is this move rook f3, and then taking the pawn on f7. And the point is, after bishop e5, he has queen d7. And all of a sudden, I'm losing a piece. But I saw that. I was like, I'm losing a piece, but it's fine. I go queen e3, sack the bishop, and now his king is just way too weak. And what happens is that I literally win every pawn with check. I win the g3 pawn with check. I could win the h3 pawn with check as well, but I decided to play bishop to d4, which is not a blunder, by the way. It's still winning. My opponent played this. Now I win another pawn with check. Then I keep checking. I win the e4 pawn with check. And here he blunders. He could have gone king e1 and kept the game going, but still I'm up like 1 point of material with a weak king, and it should be winning. But he played here, and now I win this bishop on a4 as well, and I win the b6 pawn, and now I have everything I want. He tries to keep the queens on for a little bit more, but the thing is, I eventually force the queen trade, and in this position, my opponent resigns the game, and I get another hard-fought win. So now, I'm just one game away from the elusive FIDE Master title. Can I get it? Who am I going to play? I'm facing the Wonder Girl yet again, Ashley Qian. Pretty scary pairing. 1852 FIDE. 2 out of 2 so far. 6 out of 7 in her last 7 classical games. The only loss coming against me, which I already covered in this video. So Ashley is in sensational form, but I need to win this game to become the FIDE Master. So I decided to stick to what I know the best. I played the close Sicilian and played the Grand Prix attack. So Ashley actually played a pretty good line. He developed both knights. And usually when you do that, bishop c4 is not that effective because e6, d5 is going to come. So I go bishop b5, and I'm always ready to give up this bishop and try to play with this structure. So let's say d3, e6, castles, bishop e7, queen e1, pretty simple stuff. Queen is coming here to attack, castles, and now I play this move e5. The point is, if she ever takes, I'm going to take back with the f-pawn, and it opens up my rook and the queen, and there's going to be a lot of attack. Ashley correctly goes knight e8, keeping the tension, and now if I take, the knight is going to take back and come into the game. So I keep the tension, and then give up my bishop and just develop the bishop to e3. So now one idea I have in mind is to take on d6, and if she takes back, I go rook knight e4 and try to get this nice structure with the pawns on e4 and f4. So Ashley plays knight c7, I bring my rook into the game, she plays b5, and now I play queen to g4. So the idea with queen g4 is that I'm preparing this f5 idea in the future maybe. So let's say I get my knight to e4, I can always consider breaks like f5 with my queen on g4. She plays rook e8, and now I go knight e4, knight d5 was played, and now I just simply drop my bishop back to f2. Now Ashley plays a very interesting move. She goes knight to b4, attacking both of my pawns on c2 and a2. So I definitely saw that, but I was like, she's not going to really take this pawn. I mean, she can, but with a knight out to launch on a2, and my attack coming with some f5, knight fg5, like bishop h4 ideas, this is not going to end well for her. She decided to take and then play this move d5, which was not so great. She should have taken on e5 and just played a symmetrical structure. Problem with d5 is that, okay, I didn't play the most accurate move f5 right away, but I played it after rook d1, queen c7, and now f5. Here she could have gone d4, but still I know why she was scared, because c3 is going to come, and then I'm going to take on d4, and it's still not looking that great. It's still +1. So she played queen c7, but now I go f5. Now after bishop f8, I thought I can go f6, which is the top engine move, but I was like, after g6, I don't really see how to break through. So I came up with a better idea. I think practically speaking, this is very nice after fe6, because the best move for her is to go d4, which is very tough for a human to make. Any human is going to snap take on e6 with a pawn. But now I go c3. If the knight moves away, I simply win a pawn on d5 with ed5, ed5, rook d5. So she has to insert the e4, but now I have this nice move knight g5, attacking everything. This pawn, this pawn. Now once the knight goes back, I take on e4 and threaten mate on h7. So now after g6, I was pretty sure this position is amazing for me. I have more space, more active pieces, and a lot of weaknesses around her king. So I played bishop to g3, bishop h6 was played, and now I simply drop my knight back to f3. And after knight e7, I decided to sack the exchange and just go for it. I played rook to d6, seeing that if knight f5, I simply have rook takes e6, deflecting this rook on e8 from the defense of the a8 rook. But then after knight d5, I just go h4 and keep attacking her. Bishop f8, and now knight goes to g5, sacrificing the exchange on d6. I was a little bit scared, honestly. I was like, if this doesn't work, I might lose the game. But I kind of saw that it does, because now if I take, the queen is hit and the pawn on e6 is hit. So after queen to d7, I simply take a pawn, and now the knight on d5 is also hanging. Ashley plays knight f6, and now I go queen to f3. The point is, she can't take the knight because there's still pressure on this a8 rook. She plays knight h5, but now I simply take another pawn, Now the material is equal and I have two very strong pawns. The point is, after queen f7, I go d7 after the trade. She keeps moving the rook, and now I play bishop d6, hitting the rook on f8. If she trades the queens, I simply take, and then bishop c7 will decide the day. So she goes here and tries to play like this, but the problem is after all of that, she's simply down two pawns. And now I just bring my king. And I don't mind if she takes my pawn, which she does, because now the pawn endgame is a simple win. One extra pawn is more than enough. So I create pass pawn eventually with c4. And the way you win these games is usually give up the pass pawn, use it as a decoy, and just clean up the other side of the board. So king c7 was played. I went there, cleaned up the other side. She's too slow with the a pawn, by the way. So in this position, I was actually trying to have a little bit of a giggle. I promoted to a bishop, and I'm always going to take this pawn. And then the h pawn is going to promote. I actually promoted to a rook. So I promoted to a bishop and a rook to finish it in style, have some fun, and eventually I simply checkmated her with the rook. And with this win, I passed the 2300 live rating, and I'm finally a FIDE master. So huge win. I was delighted after this game. And one thing I want to tell you guys is I'm still not officially FM, like it's not on my FIDE profile, but once these tournaments get submitted and I apply for it, I'm going to get it as soon as possible. So it is guaranteed that I will be a FIDE master. I was 2301 live after this game, so I was pretty happy, pretty delighted with my performance. Even though there were some shaky games, some nervous moments, I managed to go 10 out of 10 against 10 low-rated players to clinch the FIDE Master title. Let me know in the comments which game did you guys like the most among all of these games. And let me know your opinions about this sort of recap, where I blitzed through 10 games. Anyways, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed the recap, and the next recap series is actually going to be the Canadian Championship, which is a very high-level tournament. I'm going to do it in a traditional way, analyzing the games in more detail. But thank you guys for bearing with me for these 10 games. Pretty interesting stuff. Some shaky moments, some nerve-wracking moments, some close to the loss of dream moments, but we actually nicked it in every single game. And 10 out of 10, thank you so much. 2300. I was really happy after this game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this recap. Have a good one, guys, and see you soon. Goodbye.